Hello again. So here we are going to explore more options for drawing circles. I know it sounds like a really weird topic to have more than one short, let alone a long tutorial on, but it's fascinating actually, the different types of circles you can have. I mean, if you think about it, normally you have a brush. It's a paint program, right? So there are also browse media, there are different styles, there's oils, and all of these contribute to something that could be going along a circle. So when you erase this and go to the oval tool in the upper left corner of that icon, that will be the hollow circle. And you can see it draw that along the circle. So the question really is, well, what kind of circle are you looking for? Are you just looking for something simple, like when you right-click the brush here, you have some favorites, airbrush, simple. Is there a simple? There's a simple brush. That's also an airbrush, and so if you do a circle with that brush, where do we have it? That's the rectangle. Oh, the same thing with the rectangles, by the way, right? So it can go like this. So really, a lot of things happen even with a simple airbrush. When you do something like this here, you could have a variety of other parameters. Under the settings you see here, let's go pin this down. You could have the step distance. You see a shortcut here somewhere too. With the step distance, you're changing the distance before a new step is detected, but it's actually very close together here, so I'm not sure that that's going to make a difference here. Let's go super bag. Yeah, now you see a separation of the dabs. Each of these little dabs, that's the brush image, right? It's going there, and you can have it a little bit bigger, so you can see just very different types of rectangles. Doesn't even look like a rectangle anymore, but you could see that with the circles too. So how about your circles? Are we looking for something that is really a circle, or a bunch of circles or dabs or brushes along a circle path? Let's see, there's the opacity, that's fully opaque, that's a little bit better, but it's still a soft image here. In the custom brush, you can say, okay, I want something like this. You can adjust the bias so it's a little bit more sudden, and there you go. So now you have a brush going like this, and if you go back to perhaps a step distance and the size also a little bit smaller, there you go. Let's go draw the circle with that. And so, okay, so, how do we do this to make sure it's along a perfect circular path, right? You might want to do something like this, because in the end, you can invert that. Let's go invert it. You can also add a little bit of light diffusion. That would be under the blur, perhaps. Mystic vision. No, maybe here on the photographic, filter light diffusion. And there you go. So you see that the slight gray level here, and that will give you, if you look at this as an elevation map, that will give you a nice little pillar, and you can turn that into a 3D with puppy ray, turn that into a 3D set of pillars. And actually you could get rid of the water. Where's the water plane here? Let's get no water. So there they are. These are the pillars that are dictated, that are created by those circles aligned in a circular path. And then we added a little bit of softness there with the light diffusion. You can, of course, then interpret that in different ways with higher elevation and make it a little bit better quality in the end. Make it really better quality and more anti-aliasing. Maybe add a little bit of, what do we have here? Some bump maps or texture. Yada yada yada. So okay, so why do we have circles and what do we do with them? Let's go see other ways to draw circles. There is a feature down here. If you look at this gradient tool, there's a bunch of options in the second tab, and there's one called callouts. Right, so these callouts are actually vector data. They are in, I think in WMF, no, not WMF. There's in one of the vector formats. There might be a circle. There's one that's close to a circle. So that in itself could also be very useful as a starting point. And you could actually, if you have another program, let's say Adobe Illustrator or some Windows-based drawing tools, you can save it to the format that's used here. And then we should actually try to figure out, well, what is that format? Oh, here's a tree. And there's almost a perfect circle here, I would think. we can probably do something similar in some other programs and then save it to this format. So you would have a quick way under the callouts to add an extra shape, which is simply a circle. Oh, there's one. Look at that. Is that a circle? Yeah, no, it's a bit of an oval. It's not a perfect one, but you can adjust it, right? So you could use that. So let's say you wanted to actually use that to to do this. Let's go clear it. Let's go call out. Let's take this one. I think this one, the Marguerite, is, no, it's not a circle. It's got little bumps there. Challenges. Okay, let's go challenge accepted. Let's see, where else do we have circles? Otherwise we'll go back to that other flower. Do I see? Oh, there's, okay, well, that's close enough for starters. Let's try that too. So here we have, oh, that's the wrong way. Okay, here, something like this, and drag it down. And now here is where it would be nice to have a shift key to lock it in the aspect ratio and keep it square. Well, shy of that, what we can always do is enable the sidebar. There it is. And scroll down on the sidebar until you see the grids. That's down here at the bottom. Open that, and the grids will have artist guides. So when you center it against that guide, you should be able to maintain it as a circle. You can see, for example, it will close here, will be closed. It's a little bit off here, so we can adjust it. Maybe get it to approach and touch these side diagonals, and then we know we need to just adjust a little bit the size on the bottom side as well. There. So that's very close. It's not a perfect, but it's very close, and maybe close enough to actually get that going. So I'm going to click here and put it in. Now I need to get rid of this part. Let's get rid of the artist guides and zoom in on this area, and we will simply need to get rid of this little arrow going out. Just a little part here. Maybe we'll just paint it in. So we'll use the paintbrush, right click, some simple airbrush, something small, and the color will be the background color. So let's use the right button, and we can erase this. Now this is very soft. We need to have a crisp brush here. So a little bit smaller, that's for sure, but also just here, something like this, and with a very crisp bias. Very high bias there. That will give us, oh, that's the wrong color. Let's do an undo and then right button there. So that's a crisp edge, and we can probably get it close enough to call it perfect. A little bit more, there you go. If we went too far, we need to pick this color up. We also need to make the brush smaller. So we could use that. Where's the pickup tool there? So that would be for maybe the left button. There you go, left click. So now we can paint with the left button, paint back out, and with the right button, paint back in. And of course, there's a couple of other ways you could designate. You could use the line tool, or the linear tool rather, to fill an area with one of these colors, like this one here. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more. There are a few pixels here that we could actually go down on the size to just paint them right there, right? So we see there, down, see, look at that, look at it, up, went a little bit too far perhaps. So we can still correct that one with the right button. Oh, that's too far, left button. Yeah, okay, that's close enough. Look at that. I mean, who can tell where that thing came from, right? There's nothing there visible. Move along, nothing to see. All right, so now we can still see a little bit here. It's not completely white, so I need to make sure I pick the same color as I have back here. That's with the pickup tool again here, and I'm going to make that for a right click, so that remains the bright white secondary color. And this time I'll make it a little bit bigger, make it fully opaque, and the right button will erase this. Okay, well, that's good enough, right? I mean, in the end, we don't care what's happening on the outside here. We are going to select the inside of that circle, right? We could also change its color after that. or even without doing the selection. But let's do the magic wand selection here. Click on the inside and so you see it selected. And then you can, of course, add different color, filter, adjust color, and you could give it more red, less of the others. And you have a Ohayo gozaimasu. You have a little Japanese flag. Okay. But the point is that there are so many ways to make circles, and we just started with something that was totally not a circle, but just close enough to turn it into one. Now, this time you might want to say, well, I want just a black line or some sort of a line going along this. So you could do that with a filter that does edge detection, right? So let's say if the filter, if we go to convolutions, convolve, there's a couple there. There's edge detect. There it is. Not perfect because there are some very fine ones, and well, yeah, it's close enough to perfect for some use cases. You can then make it wider. You can blur it and sharpen it again. Let's say we use another one of those, convolve. There's a new one, the adjustables. Where is it? Color Sobel edge detection is a little bit better, I would say. It gives you a line that's a little bit more solid, more defined. And again, if you want it wider, you can blur it just a tiny little bit. Let's use the Gaussian blur this time. So you blur it, just see how it's a wider now, and then you make it precise perhaps, and then okay that. And now you can go to the threshold, adjust threshold, and you get a fat one, right? You can change where the threshold is, and it's not exactly a circle. Look at that. There are some parts that are showing here at the threshold of the threshold, and then you have still a very usable wide circle. And of course that too could be used for an elevation map. Let's go back and see what that looks like. This time I'm going to use the 3D designer. And with the 3D designer, you see how that circle looks. You could go with some ambient occlusion in multiply mode. You could do more pre-filtering. You could do a number of anti-aliasing rendering passes and all sorts of shenanigans there. Shadows are being dropped. You can change the light source, the brightness. Heck, you can also add some textures there, or erosion. Let's see if we can get some erosion. This one's not. This one's too perfect. It doesn't find a starting point for erosion until maybe I have really high level of. Nope, no go for erosion on this one. But yeah, so that's a circle for you. Let's see what else can we do for circles. There are a number of options here that are rendering something that may not even look like much of a circle. There's cellular dread plating. Let's do that. Let's do the dread plating without the weathering and much bigger scale. There you go. Some couple of squares. And how are these related to circles? Well, maybe if we blur them, let's see, blur, blur, blur. There you go. Again, maybe a Gaussian blur. Right. And then if we go to sharpening, rather, what did we have here? Not sharpen, but threshold. Threshold that. Yeah, so that's not it. Going the wrong way here. But that looks interesting. Like if you ever want to simulate something like a celluloid film burning up at the movie theater, you have some interesting evolution there. So that's something you would use with the timeline. But what else did I have in mind when I went on this? Well, let's get back to this one. Yes, in terms of edge detection, there's a new type of edge detection. I think under the scripts or all plugins. I think it's under the scripts. Help me find it here. HSV box, that's not it. GUI, no. We had it recently added. Maybe it's under the plugins. Filter. It's got a funky name too. Canny. It's a canny edge detect. There it is. All right, so that one's also pretty good. Let's see, create canny edges. Okay to begin. Well, we'll see if that one is suitable. The canny edge detection is quite sophisticated. This one is not a sophisticated use case, so you might not exactly need it, but it can be useful. And also another thing that you could do is actually pass this into the selection mask and then just grow the selection. Right, so that's another option there. Let's copy that. Let's store it first and then copy it to the swap image. So that's a copy to swap image. Once it's in the swap image, you can't really see where it is. For example, if you switch there to the swap image, no difference. It's the same as what's in the main image. You can see here I'm on the swap right now, and if I use this, it's now I'm looking at the main image, right? The swap image and the main image, swap and main. So that's the backside of the canvas, if you will. And you can clear the selection. And actually, no, what we want to really do is move that swap image into the selection. So you can do that in a couple of ways. One of them is you simply go to the image menu and copy swap or alpha copy swap image to selection, and then the other way is copy the selection to swap image. So here I'm going to take the swap image and put that into the selection. So now we have the marching ants showing here along that edge, right along the transition, and you can grow that selection. So you can go to the selection and you can store it first too. Store the selection so you can see it's there as a very thin selection circle in a circular area, and within reason you can make this a little bit bigger to even paint on that. But most importantly, you can shrink or grow the selection from the selection menu. You can grow the selection right there, and let's say we want it this much wider. So now you have the outer and the inner part of that selection, and it's almost a circle. There's a little bit more narrow here and a little bit wider here, so it wasn't a perfect way to do it, but it's a good enough in many cases. So maybe what we do now is we right click and clear the selected to white, so we have now this white circle. And if we clear the selection and make this one a little bit softer with the blur, Gaussian blur, something like this, I bet you we can get it to a point where you can't really tell that it's less wide here than over here. It's a little bit more narrow. You can still see that, but if you now go to the threshold, there you go, it's gonna come even closer to perfect. Yeah, it still has that, right? And sometimes it's perfect. Sometimes you want that. Like, for example, if you want that to be, again, a elevation map for some sort of old ritualistic ancient structure. Let's go to, where am I? Filters, transform, and puppy ray GPU. So this time we go to the fast preview render. There you go. And maybe the sun needs to go up higher. There you go, so we can see some shadows cast. Maybe we want to have some slightly different vantage point. Let's go up higher. Let's move the fog farther away so we see how it's tiling it and repeating that pattern, that elevation map, until it disappears in the fog. Let's also give it a different, and no anti-aliasing right now, so we're a little bit faster here. Let's enable the water. Let's get rid of the texture, or just change to a different, maybe pitted. How pitiful, look at that. And then we have increased in the pre-filter, increase in the global illumination. That makes it a bit brighter even when the sun is not shining on it. Now, where did I hear that? Where the sun don't shine. Don't answer that. All right, so we have the sun over here somewhere. Let's get the sun back down. Hello, sunset. Where are you? There. Okay, let's move her all the way back there. And then all the way down and make it very close. It should become a reddish tint here. Let's get the level of the fog even farther. And get the sun much bigger. Let's make it a 2 something, 230. big, and then a reddish tint. Light color is kind of a reddish, maybe a little bit orange. There you go, and something like that. So there's a reddish tint. And what else could we do? So a little bit less on the global illumination. Actually, no, let's keep it, but make the sky some reddish. There you go. So now we have a lot of red there. This other sky is good too. Yes, I love that. Now we might want to increase the global illumination somewhat, and certainly increase the elevation of the sun with the right button going up. There you go. Increase the intensity of the sunlight, and perhaps also give it a little bit more whitish, so there's not just red light there. And what else could we do here? Remember, this started with circles. That's just fascinating where you can take it. Let's go a water plane. Let's bring the water back. And there you go. Maybe it's too... maybe we need to have a little bit less on that brightness. Let's make it... let's make it like dirty water, like after the floods. Something like this. And a little bit more transparent. Just a little bit very light there, so we see the darkness from the ground of the water. There you go, see a little bit of murky water, some depth to it, and then also some caustics. Can we see some caustics? Yeah, not much there. A little bit there. Alright, so now this is something that looks great, but you might make it look even better when you animate that. And so what I'll do is I'll go call it done, do a, well, let's store that image for the collection, so we have it here, and then I'll undo that, so we have that elevation map again. Now I'll turn this into an animation, create, and let's say we want 1, 2, 3 images for about 4 seconds of animation and a few extras. Now we can skim through this simply with animation, filter, transform, puppy ray. So now this time we will have, let's do a quick test render. So far so good, still at the same place. And the only thing I'm going to do in this animation is just very slowly move into the scene. So I'm going to keyframe this one, and then I'm going to go to the end of the animation, still the same place, nothing has changed. I'm going to undo the anti-aliasing so it's a little bit faster as we test it, and then I'm going to move the camera forward. So I'm going to drag down like this. I'm also going to turn a little bit. Let's see, which way do I want to turn? To the left, to the right. Let me go back. I needed to move in and at least keyframe that. So let's go here and move just into the scene and then keyframe it. Click the plus. So now I have 2 keyframes, one here, and if I go to the next keyframe, that's this one here, it goes right to the end. So that keyframe is good. I have this one here behind this wall, and then here ahead of this wall, but I want to rotate a little bit too, so I'm going to go here to rotate the camera with the right button. It's going to go along this, and maybe I want just that, maybe I want to do a full turn, or do I want to look around? Yeah, that looks pretty interesting too. Maybe in like this. So let's see if I keyframe that. So now I have an interpolation. You can see in the preview here a little bit faster. Nice. So I'm moving forward, but I'm also turning sideways and rotating my head, turning my head and looking to the side. Alright, and now I'm going to do a test render with anti-aliasing, but not that many. There's only 6 steps. Maybe a little bit better on the quality to reduce the flickering or the noise. I'm going to go 5 for the GI samples, and maybe a little bit more on the water, a little bit more stormy look. So it's going to be more agitated. Maybe that's too much. Let's do 3. Perlin noise is good. Specular, maybe a little bit less on the hardness. 5 and 33 for the specularity. Oh, and then some ground fog. And usually adds a nice little misty appearance there. The waves are good. Maybe we want them bigger though. More separation. So the frequency here is too high. Let's make it 0.2, so the waves are farther apart. And I think that's good for the most part here. Maybe a little bit soft shadows. Let's give it 12 for the soft shadows. And then we have anti-aliasing steps. Let's get something like